Again, Ian, thanks so much for taking the time to chat. Do you want to quickly introduce yourself?
My name is Ian Spriggs. Most people know me as a digital portrait artist. I've done a couple of portraits which are kind of hyper realistic, so a lot of people confuse them to be photographs and all that. And so I've kind of become more well known in the industry through doing photorealistic digital humans. But I do work full time at Unity right now, doing digital humans. I've got maybe 16 years working in the visual effects industry before that. I worked at places like ILM, Mr. X. I worked
everywhere. Image engine. I can do your resume.
I had a background in art school too. That was back in the day.
I'm super psyched, and I was curious. Like, this is something I ask pretty much everyone these days when they come on the podcast, because it's always a different answer. Like, I was a lawyer, and then I decided I'm going to pursue my passion that I always wanted, but my parents told me art's not a real career, or whatever it might be. Did you always think growing up that you wanted to be an artist, or was it something that you fell into kind of later on?
I was always an artist. Like, I always loved doing art, and I always focused on that. But having it as a career I didn't even know it was possible. I remember back in the day, it was like when our parents' generation is like, being an artist is like, oh, that's a nice hobby, but what do you want to do for work?
That's right, exactly. It's like, what do you want to do for your career? In your spare time.
When I discovered like the visual effects industry, it was like an eye opener. Like, I just realized it's like, oh, this actually can be a possibility. I was like 26 years old before I realized having a career in arts is possible.
That's so cool. I'm curious, like, for you, like, what was like kind of the catalyst? Like, where was that big, realization for you? Was it seeing a certain film, or just the fact that you're like, hey, there's actually money in this thing, it's something I can actually leverage? Like, I'm just kind of curious for you, like, where you first discovered it.
So after art school, I couldn't get a job. So I was living in Montreal, just unemployed, just drawing. And then my younger brother ended up going to Sheridan in Toronto for animation school. And then he was like, hey, Ian, like, Seneca, another animation school's applying, like, still accepting for positions for like the schooling. So he's like, you should apply. I'm like, what are you talking about? And then he kind of introduced me to like this world. It was like, I didn't even know before. And I was like, oh my Lord, I can actually go to the school and get a job in visual effects afterwards. And it's like seeing that pathway. Like, as soon as I could see the pathway, I knew that's what I was going to be doing. It was just becoming aware of what that path was. Is the hard part.
I'm curious too, just to kind of jump ahead a little bit, but like, what was your first job in 3D? Like, how did you first get in? I did stalk you a little bit, and I noticed you were doing some stereoscopic stuff at the very beginning. But I'm just curious, like, what was the first kind of big job that you landed?
Did you ever see Veggie Tales?
I don't think I did.
It's like little fruits, like tomatoes with faces. And like...
I feel like the title just already kind of gives me the whole vision of like what it is, like 3D cartoon characters doing stuff.
Yeah, so I worked on a film for the Veggie Tales. I actually went to the theater to watch it because it was my first feature film, and there was like me plus like a mom with a 5-year-old, and that was it.
That's really cool though. Yeah, I'm curious too, like, for you at the time, like, what was that like, getting to see your work on the big screen, even if it was VeggieTales?
Yeah, I absolutely loved it. It was pretty cool seeing my name on the credits. The first time for me, but that was pretty exciting. It was kind of like I realized, it's like, this is a cool career. I'm gonna really enjoy doing this.
Yeah, no, that's great. I think it is really fascinating, the fact that, I mean, you're doing this organically anyway, but like getting to create work with a collaborative team of people, and then the fact that like all these people get to see it on the big screen and get to experience it around the world. And like I said, you're also doing this organically with your work. The fact that, again, you brought this up, the fact that people kind of get confused about like, oh yeah, like, that's a cool photograph, not realizing potentially the amount of painstaking work that goes into it and talent.
Yeah, for sure. Yeah, I think because being in the industry for as long as I have been now, I'm realizing like how much, it's almost like you have to learn a language. Like, if you want to speak a new language, it's going to take you a couple of years to know it. And like learning Maya, learning Mudbug, ZBrush, all these crazy tools, it's like you really have to dive into it. And then having to explain that to somebody looking from the outside in, it's very hard to grasp how much knowledge you can get over the years.
I think he had a thing in '99, which was, there's jobs and there's careers. And, I think 3D is definitely one of those things. It's a massive career. It's something that you don't just dabble in. It's like you're really going to need to put in your time for a long time before you really get to, see the results in a way that you can feel comfortable and confident about what you're doing.
Well, there's so many hurdles along the way. It's like first off, like most companies, you have to work a crazy amount of overtime. If you have a family, it's very difficult to have split that time. It's highly competitive.
Mm-hmm.
So it's like if you're not like the best in your field, somebody else is just going to take your job. And it's like, and then most contracts are just shorts. Like usually most people go from one company to another, just kind of following the work. It's not often you can actually land a job where you stay in one spot. So
yeah, I mean, I'm kind of curious what your take is. I mean, obviously right now you're working at Unity, but and obviously you're pretty much one of those household names, in my opinion. I didn't mean to come in kissing your butt, but I mean, what are your thoughts now in the industry? Because I do feel like I'm actually trying to hire so many people right now, and it's so hard to actually find people available. So in a way, I'm really excited about that, knowing what you just said, that how much difficulty there is to stand out, to get the attention, to be able to get work over all these other people who are all competing for your work or for your job. I'm kind of curious, what your thoughts are on the state of the industry these days, given the fact that TV has real budgets now, feature films are just being pumped out like a machine more than ever. Video games, there's all these additional realms like VR and AR, all these different things that are starting to pop up that, if anything, now we've got more opportunity for work than ever before. So do you feel now it's a little bit flipped on the other end, where there's more work and opportunities than ever before?
Yeah, I'll say so. It's kind of it's a big question because it's so many different aspects of our industry now. Like 15 years ago, you go into 3D and it's like, oh, I would be a modeler. That's my job title. I would model everything. Now those job titles have split into subcategories of subcategories, and so specific. And it's there's a lot more jobs for each role, but
fantasy organic creature artist. It's there's so many very specific genres, and yeah, you're absolutely right.
Yeah, but I definitely think it's the industry is getting bigger, and I think more jobs are becoming available, and I really do think it's the future. Everything's going to be digitalized at some point. This is the way we're heading, and our industry is the one which is going to help make it that happen. So I think it is a kind of exciting time to get into the industry. I can't see myself ever doing anything else. I think it's just too exciting not to be doing this, because we're creating cutting edge tools, and we're creating the future basically.
Yeah, that's the exciting thing. Is I think back to, I think it was '92 that I started dabbling in 3D and 2D art, and when '95 kicked around, I was so excited because I could finally point at Toy Story and be like, that's the kind of stuff that I do. And just in terms of no one knew what VFX was, or 3D animation, any of these things. And whereas now, I'm kind of jealous of the fact that people are learning 3D in high school, and the fact that software is free. There's studios have mentorship programs and internships, all these different things to support people getting in. So it's definitely changed. It's definitely a more lucrative, or I should say more supported industry than it was when it's people hiding in their basement in the dark on the internet doing 3D and sharing it with each other.
Yeah, I remember when I first started 3D, I had a couple questions which the teachers wouldn't know, so I had to go to the textbook and open up the page and read it, because there's nothing online. There's no forums that helps with support at that time. There's some forums on CG Talk, but yeah, it's to actually find out some information is almost impossible. Now it's students being exposed to so much information right away.
It's kind of funny. It's definitely flipped, where now it's about finding the right information versus finding information. Before it was any information. Now it's okay, what are the resources I want to trust versus there's being so much you got to sift through. I'm kind of curious for you, what were back then the websites that you were visiting and hanging out on, forums, communities, stuff like that?
I think CG Talk was my number one.
Yeah.
Yeah, I think I went to that just for everything. Just those are good forums, good art galleries. I remember that was my goal, because they were very like elites. Like to get onto the front page was just like only the top of the best could get on there.
Yeah, whenever you got I forgot the term for it, but yeah, basically shown on the front page, that was like a big deal. It's just which is really cool. And I remember CG Channel, especially back like I think like 2000 2001, whenever you get some news posted on their thing, they'd always email you like, prepare for your website to crash, and it would, because back then there'd be so much traffic would hit your thing, because they just, anything hosted on there would just flood the servers. So it's kind of interesting back then, just to kind of like look at how different things were. And obviously now there is so much stuff out there. I think you kind of get a little desensitized to it at times.
Yeah, I agree. Like there's just piles of artwork, and it's kind of like even though some of the good stuff gets kind of lost.
That's also the crazy thing too, is when there is so much talent that, like, you go back to early 3D, the amount of work it would take to do some subpar stuff, and now it's like some little kid with Max or Maya or ZBrush is doing immaculate work. It's like, I hate you so much, but amazing work.
Yeah.